Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always is...
Klaatu Barata Eddie of Edward's Truth. Yeah.
And today we are talking about Army of Darkness, released October 9th, 1992 was the the film festival premiere, but I guess technically the theatrical release was February 19th, 1993. So we're like 30 years and a few days off of the premiere.
And we couldn't be happier,
Cray, hey? We couldn't be happier? Well,
to be celebrating this film.
Army of Darkness. Well, I mean, if you're just tuning in, we're kind of doing all the Evil Deads leading up to the release of Rise, or Evil Dead Rise. I was going to call it Rise of the Evil Dead, but it's called Evil Dead Rise, right? The new one, yeah. Okay,
I believe.
Yeah, so we're 3 for 4 now, and
3 for 4.
3 for 4, and I mean, I'm guessing by what you had just said that maybe you're not too hot on this movie. Is that a good assumption?
Why would you think that, Zack Cherry? Why?
I just an inkling, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really. I don't know if the word is perceptive, but sure. Why not? I don't know.
Are you going to be fucking with
into
me this whole... Let's do a premise.
I'm in rare form myself.
Yeah.
Let's do a premise. Well, Bruce Campbell is transported back to medieval times. And when the army of goodness decide he's the chosen one, oh my gosh, I'm Beth Davis. Now...
What? What the?
I'm still going. Okay, now Bruce has to retrieve the Necronomicon so he can return home after he defeats the, oh my gosh, the Army of Darkness. Huh? Little inside baseball, but
It's, I mean, all I hear is the South Park thing, like the Rob Schneider like movie trailer. He's like, Rob Schneider is a carrot.
All right, let me explain.
Okay.
I don't know where the meme came from exactly. Was it from Rob Schneider? I have no idea. But at one point there was that like, oh my gosh, goosebumps kind of meme.
Oh, the Irma Gerd Gershberms.
Yeah. And I remember at some point, maybe, I don't remember it was during the 13 Ghosts pod or after.
Oh no, this was like maybe like a few months ago, right?
Okay, like talking about Beth Davis, the actress who plays Sheila in this movie and who was in 13 Ghosts as whatever role she was in that.
Yeah.
She was the queen betrayer, but anyway.
And Miss Honey and Matilda for all those.
And Miss Honey and Matilda and the bitch in Bridget Jones' Diary who sits there and goes like, "Not in your bunny outfit again." She's a superb actress. I love her. Oops. But yeah. So I think you were the one who said to me, "Oh my gosh, Beth Davis," because she has such a
because you could take her name, and if it was like in the context of like the Ermagerd Gersperms, it'd be like Ermagerd Ermbert Derver or something like that. Okay, right?
So something told me, I thought it would make you laugh. I knew it would make me laugh.
Yeah.
And
thank you
it
for
worked.
that.
It made us both laugh.
And now everybody is like clicked off. Nobody's actually going to stay for the duration of the Ermir Dirknersh.
It's fun to have
Dirkner.
fun.
Yeah.
And good luck, Andre, in putting together whatever trailer you can. For
just random clips.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Don't make any sense at all.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Okay. And, just a little background for the Evil Deads that we've covered for the cherry
Yeah.
picker so far, they've like notoriously been our least viewed and listened to episodes. Which
Yes.
is such a mind fuck for me, because like this is a franchise that is so popular.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to discuss with you like maybe why that might be. Like, why do people not care, especially with like a new movie coming out? Because I first of all, I'm gonna ask you, based on the 3 that we've covered so far, ranking, and don't act like you didn't see this coming. I'll go first if that makes it easier. I would say
Sure.
Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead, and then Army of Darkness at the bottom.
I am in agreement with you on that ranking.
Wow.
That is my ranking as well thus far. I know that never happens.
I mean, but we're only doing 3, so it's you know.
Yeah,
the
but
odds
maybe
are...
that's why. Because we actually agree on it, so nobody wants to listen. I don't know.
Well, I have a theory, but no, I want to hear yours first.
Well, I didn't form one, so you have one. On
Okay,
the table, and
well,
I'll
because
reply.
we've talked about this before, and I don't know if like we might have mentioned it. I might have brought it up like partially in the one for Evil Dead 2, but I feel that, I mean, I don't want to assume what our listener viewer demographic is, but I know like the horror genre is very much favored by LGBTQ, and both you and I are LGBTQ. Surprise.
Gee,
for anyone who didn't know. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm just like going through these movies again. It just like really struck me that like I don't really see the appeal for LGBTQ. Like it just, you know, when I think of movies like Scream or Halloween, like anything that involves a character who has to face back against some sort of oppression or adversity or repression or you know, what have you, those are themes that, you know, appeal to LGBTQ. And I find with like the Evil Dead franchise, it's so like hetero because it's the main character is essentially like a guy, you know, he's like a man's man. Like that's the whole thing. Like, you know, like we talked about the Bruce Campbell bravado, you know, in the last movie. And I feel like, you know, you mentioned this before, not necessarily with the character of Ash or anything like that, but I, you know, especially watching this, I feel like now more than ever, if I could define like who Ash is as a character, it's someone who fails upwards. And it's kind of like, it's an instance of like somebody who, no matter what happens, you know, they will fuck everything up and will still succeed. And maybe there's just something appealing about that to, I mean, maybe I'm just grasping at wild straws here, but I just like,
yeah. Because there's a central male figure, and because, I mean, he's aesthetically pleasant as well, you would think there's a kind of an in. I mean, I know there's an in for me. I do enjoy these movies. I think I've said on previous pods, it's not my favorite franchise by far, but I do enjoy it, and I do enjoy Bruce Campbell. I think I said I found him most aesthetically pleasant in Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, and he's very pretty in this one as well. He's very pretty in this one as well, though. But I think the problem...
Didn't he have like a bowl cut in the first one?
Ish. Like, it was 80s with like kind of like feathered flicks at the ears, maybe, you know, like very kind of facts of life, you know. Men and women had that haircut back at that time in the early 80s. But no, I think because he isn't alpha male at all in the first movie. But this is the thing. The women are all, none of them are depicted as strong.
No,
you know, like
not.
I mean, Yeah, they're the ones who are the kind of like the most put upon, and it's kind of up to the men, and the men assume this role, differently, each in their own way, but it's kind of like on their shoulders to kind of like, protect. Like in Ash's case, I think it's mostly protecting his sister, and with what was the other guy's name? I don't even remember their names. That's the thing.
Are you talking about the first one?
I don't even remember the other guy's name in the first Evil Dead movie, but so whatever his name was. But he's definitely got that alpha energy, and he ends up paying a price for it. Ash does end up failing upwards in that movie. Yeah. But so so already there isn't kind of like like the most marginalized final survivor in the movie is Ash. He's the only survivor, but he's marginalized because he's more sensitive and more afraid than the alpha guy, but he does kind of rise to the occasion in the end. So I don't know, it's a scattered arc for that character. Like, I mean, it's really simple, but if you're trying to track it in any way that is meaningful or that makes sense, it's not like a Nancy or a Lori or
but I mean, like,
or even an Alice,
but because you mentioned like it's just because it's a final boy situation, and I don't necessarily agree with that, and I'm not saying that that's what you were going for, because there's tons of movies where there are final boys, and they have the same pushback that like any of those characters that you just mentioned, any of those female characters. I mean, like, as an example, The Faculty, like Elijah Wood's character, like that is gay energy right there, if I ever did see any. So it's it is like, it does speak to the appeal of these movies, especially because like you do have these characters like Sheila in this one, who like her role is to just kind of like rely on the man to do everything, and I think it's what's funny is that of all three movies so far, or like that we've covered, Sheila's probably the most like she's been given the most depth out of any of the female characters, or just like more so fleshed out than like Linda, who we've had before, or I don't even remember her name in the last movie. I mean, she had some stuff, but I feel like there was more of like a connection in this movie between Sheila and Ash than there was between Ash and who I've already forgotten her name in the last movie.
But Sheila didn't do anything. Like, she
did more when she was
prop.
evil.
And even then she just kind of stood there and just like made it about, like, you found me beautiful once.
She used her feminine wiles.
Incredibly vapid and just lacking in any kind of like nuance or character, even for a campy role.
Even at the beginning, because she just kind of like assumed that he was responsible for her brother's death and was like right up there spitting on him and throwing stones. But then, and I don't want to jump too much into the next movie because we are not covering it until later on down the line, but my memory of that still remains positive. Like, it's been a while since I've seen that, like, even like Army of Darkness, it's been a while since I've seen it, but Evil Dead 2013, and it's been a while, but I know that is Final Girl. We've got what's the actress's name? The character is Mia, but
I know. Because you're asking,
her whole thing is like she's dealing with drug withdrawals. In that, so there's already this nuanced subtext of just like the struggle that she's facing in real life and how that relates to the Deadites. Whereas I feel like with everything in this movie and with Ash, it's just like it's all just there. There's nothing to it on a deeper level. It's just like this is pretty much like vaudevillian comedy, and there's even a point that I. In the movie, and I think it's when all like the bones, like the skeleton hands, are like poking at him, and all I could think is like, this is like if I was like at a like a 7-year-old birthday party. Like it was like my birthday party and like my mom got a clown or a magician or something. Like I feel like this is the kind of performance that I would be getting from that. And I don't know. I didn't appreciate the comedy in this. I don't know. This wasn't a good watch for me. I'll just say.
Okay. Well, maybe just to put to bed the broader question about like the franchise and why it doesn't seem to be like capturing, at least as far as our coverage is concerned. Yeah. Like more of whoever our listeners are. Yeah. The only other thing I can kind of assume is, even though it's still thought of fondly enough that like studios are encouraged to continue using this franchise, like using this moniker to make money and everything like that. Because one thing we're not going to be covering is, at least not yet, is the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series, which I've seen, and you haven't. Did you start it and didn't finish it, or you haven't even?
I saw the first episode, and I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Commit to watching more past that.
I think you would enjoy it. That said, I think everybody would enjoy it. But
I own it. It's in my Evil Dead box set behind me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think it only kind of like enriches your relationship to these movies, regardless of like how strong or, just kind of there it is. I thought it was a great addition to the franchise. It made me appreciate these movies even more. That said, do I watch them more often now because of that TV show? No, it just makes me want to watch the series more and Evil Dead 2. But even the trajectory of like Ash with the first movie just being kind of like docile and having to rise to the occasion, but also kind of failing upwards in that final girl by default way, or final boy by default way in the first movie. Second movie, I enjoy him the most because he seems like kind of like the most put upon character. But I don't know why more people wouldn't be interested in that movie, because I favor it. This one, for me, the problem is, you kind of addressed it already. He's assumed full alpha status. He's saying lines that he would never have said in either of the previous movies. I mean, he even echoes a few that he did, which is kind of fun when we revisit lines of dialogue, or even just like little situations where they're like groovy and stuff like that. Yeah. The thing is, I felt like in the second movie, groovy comes from this this kind of reflective fascination with who he's becoming. It's almost like with that one line, Bruce Campbell's just kind of like, guess I'm an action star now, kind of thing. Whereas in this movie, when he says it, he's comfortable in the action star role. And the problem is, I think the movie, in its more active parts, it resembles more of that of like a Hollywood blockbuster action film than a Hollywood blockbuster horror movie. And that's part of what loses me. I don't mind the humor, but again, even like the temperature there, I feel like everything we see him do in Evil Dead 2 is, I'm watching Buster Keaton, I'm watching Charlie Chaplin, I'm watching Harold Lloyd, like these experts at physical comedy and, who know how to like kind of like angle the bit toward the camera in the most effective way for the audience. And it's not like Bruce Campbell has lost that in this movie, but it feels like a different level of physical comedy. It kind of, forgive me for saying, kind of degenerates for me into a more Three Stooges territory. And, like, nyah, nyah, nyah. And just like, even the bit that he does with all of those arms, those skeletal arms rising up after he does his, and with the Necronomicon. And he even does like one of these, so the, like one of the little like hands in front of his eyes so the skeleton can't poke his eyes out and stuff. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, that's full on. That is full on Three Stooges reference.
Well, I mean, if you look at the trajectory of this franchise, because one, for all intents and purposes, is straight up horror. Like there might be a little bit of comedy here and there, but for the most part, it's dark. The gross. Second one, well, let's not let's actually jump to this one first, because this is like full on comedy, just in like that very much Three Stooges way. The second one is like a really good marriage of the two. That it was almost like a scale that it's just like it started off at the first one and it just made its way all the way to the comedy in the third one, and it was the second movie where it perfected the formula. And it's funny that, I mean, just because you have a better experience with the television series because you've seen it all, I would imagine that probably leans heavily into the comedy as well. Well, no, I'm asking you a question. I'd appreciate an answer.
Oh, you're asking?
Don't play coy.
Okay, no spoilers, but I will say there's definitely, I mean, the comedy is definitely present, but one thing that I appreciate about the series is it seems to take the strongest essence, or the strongest pieces, shall we say, of each movie that preceded and put them together in this glorious Frankenstein monster of a series.
Oh, okay,
I can really appreciate when it's leaning into the Evil Dead, or when it's leaning more toward Army of Darkness, because the Ash of the series has to have at least elements of Ash in Army of Darkness, because that's the most recent chapter we've seen him be a part of. So that has to be kind of prevailing, at least when he's reintroduced.
So it sounds like if you were to pinpoint a tone, the series is probably mostly aligned with Evil Dead 2.
That's how I feel.
Okay.
But overall, like, it could be just because Evil Dead 2, like you already brought up and we've talked about before, kind of like uses those elements of horror, uses those elements of comedy, uses those wonderful practical effects, and celebrates them to like the nth degree.
Right.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just that. What I'm trying to say is that Evil Dead 2 is probably by large considered to be the favorite, and I think at least with Sam Raimi, since he did the series, right? That was his show. Yeah, that, you know, he recognized that, and that's why they probably leaned more towards that tone there. So it strikes me as odd that, you know, this series that is probably most fondly remembered for that kind of tone, specifically in Evil Dead 2, that we're now moving away. I mean, I shouldn't really speak of the new movie because it hasn't come out yet, but judging from the trailer, and I know you don't watch trailers, but it seems like it's going more for a similar tone that the Evil Dead 2013 did, of just like, it's more horror. You know, we're going back more to like the grandiose blood and guts and all that shit. With a little bit of humor, but it seems to be taking a lot more serious of a tone, at least. So it's just to track the trajectory of, you know, all these movies. It's all over the map, and it seems like there probably are people who, you know, have their preferences. Like, I'm sure there are people who, like, Army of Darkness is the best one. It's their favorite. And I think that, and like, this is another thing we've talked about before, and just like, it's camp, and where, you know, kind of like a movie's status will come from, like how to make camp good and how to make camp bad. And I feel that with Evil Dead 2, while they were making that, what that reads to me when I watch that is it felt like a movie where during the production, it was almost like they were kind of making it up as they went along. And I say that in the best way possible, because it's just sort of like, what if we try this? You know, maybe that'll be funny. Quiet.
She
cat.
wants Des. She just wants attention. She's bringing me a little sock. Des, calm down.
At least it's not a mouse.
Then she'd have something to play with.
Yeah. No. But, okay, but yeah. So Evil Dead 2, it just feels like a lot of it came from just the moment of just like, oh, let's do that. Like, it was very experimentational. Whereas Army of Darkness, sorry, it's almost like everything was carefully curated and choreographed to be what it was. It's like I feel that most of it was probably storyboarded to, you know, like those things like with the skeletons and you know the poking of the eyes and the hand and all that stuff, right down to even like the battles and the fights. Like it all felt so like
slapstick.
Not slapstick, but pre-planned. Like it felt like it was intentional. If that makes sense. That's the word that I think we've used to describe it. When camp is intentional, that's when it becomes less gratifying.
I mean, that's when it borderlines or runs the risk of like entering cheese territory.
Yeah.
There's campy and then there's cheesy. And that said, I mean, I don't dislike this movie overall. I dislike chunks of it. And unfortunately, it's got such a short runtime, at least the theatrical release, which is what I watched, and I think that's what you watched too, right?
I don't like the director's cut.
I've never seen it. What's different about it?
I think the only thing that's different is the ending. I could be wrong, but because I have all of them on the set that I have, and the only thing I remember is that the ending, in the theatrical cut, he takes off on the horse while Irmbert Dervitz is standing at the drawbridge, and then it kind of fades into, you know, he's back in current times and he's in S-Mart and he's telling the story to the coworker, and they're just like, wow, great. And then that scene happens. But in the, I guess the original, or the like how Sam Raimi had intended, he goes off to this cave, and how he is going to get back to present day is to take these like drops of some potion that they made, like the alchemist had made, and it's like it's very similar just in terms of like the same beat as like earlier when he forgot to like what the phrase that he had to say when he opened the Necronomicon. But here, instead of that, it was. He could only take, I think it was like 3 drops or something specific like that. And he was taking like 1, 2, and then he heard a noise and he got distracted. And then he went back to it and he's like 2, 3. So he took an extra drop, which I guess then equated to an extra 1,000 years being asleep. So it was like kind of like Rip Van Winkle meets Planet of the Apes. Like he wakes up at the end and he emerges from this cave and gets to the surface, and then there's like this city in ruins. It's like post-apocalyptic, and he's just like, no, I came back too late. You're like, they blew it up, you know, like just some stupid shit like that. So I mean, like I'm like, okay, I prefer the S-Mart ending because it's more true to who the character had become by that point. Like I was more interested in seeing him kind of like assume his ultimate form, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I think I've had it explained to me before, because as you're describing it, I'm like, I don't have a real vivid picture like something you would get from watching it, but I have imagined this before, and I don't think I'm just, you know, prescient or psychic or anything like that. But okay, but so bottom line with this version of the film with theatrical release, which is all I've had exposure to, direct exposure to, from the get-go, I take issue with the movie. I always have a hard time. I've seen it a few times now. I remember a lot of friends of mine in my 20s were very gung-ho about this movie. When they found out I hadn't seen it, they're like, oh my God, you've got to see it. And I was like, all right, sure. I mean, I put it off for so long because I heard it's just kind of slapstick and, you know, doesn't take anything seriously at all. Right. And makes, you know, the second one look, you know, kind of like this fever dream art piece, and which I think it is. So I sat with some friends and watched it, and I've watched it multiple times with people and alone, and it gets laughs, and like I said, I even enjoy pockets of it. But from the beginning, the opening 19 minutes, shall we say, are always grueling for me, and that's a lot because this movie is what is it, like 1 hour and 20 minutes long?
It's 81 minutes long. Yeah, this is the
81
shortest
minutes
running
long,
time
so
for an Evil Dead movie.
okay. So that gives you about an hour, that gives me about an hour of an actual movie, because for me, the first 19 minutes are absolutely disposable and unnecessary, because at the end of Evil Dead 2, we've already seen Ash arrive. We've seen him kill this thing in the sky. We've seen everybody kind of like bow down and decide to worship him. And we've seen him going, no, and cut to black and credits.
Yeah.
I get the joke. I get it. Okay, cool. Let's pick up from there. No, we have like an almost 20-minute sequence of him being assumed to be some kind of like, like bad influence or whatever, and like, and now he's a slave, and then he has to prove himself. And I'm like, oh my god, I already saw all this, like the short version. They did the reverse thing Sam Raimi did, by showing me kind of like a shortened version, the abridged version first, and then showing me kind of like an enhanced version, which also it's not interesting enough to me for me to want to see the enhanced version. I was ready to see, how's he going to get along now that everybody's kind of worshiping him? I want to see that world, and we don't get it until like 20 minutes into the movie.
And then conversely, what they had done with from 1 to 2, which they had to do because of the rights to the original film, so I don't know what the issue was here. But again, they just kind of like abridged the first and second movie into a small portion at the beginning by like reintroducing Linda, the third Linda now, who by default is my favorite Linda because it's played by Bridget Fonda.
How did they get her?
Single white female.
Do you know?
I mean, I'm assuming like Sam Raimi's no slouch. Like, he's a big deal, especially in 1992. True. And I feel like she's also Hollywood royalty. She comes from the Fonda family. So I just think that like maybe somebody was friends in production, and that, because like 1992 was like, that was probably when she was like at the height of her fame, because she was in like Single White Female, Singles. I just assumed like someone was just like, yeah, let's, like, Bridget really wants to be in the movie. Apparently Bridget Fonda also wanted to be in and almost was cast in a Dario Argento movie. I think it was Trauma. It didn't work out because like she is like a huge Dario Argento fan. So I mean, another reason to love her. She obviously loves the genre. But anyway, by default, I mean the most useless and like least amount of screen time Linda is my favorite, just by default because it's Bridget Fonda. But this is also the movie where S-Mart is established, because remember we were talking in the last movies, it's just like, wait, when does S-Mart come into the equation? And we realized that's not something that's introduced until chapter 3. So I totally agree with you on just the sense that like that ending of 2 had already kind of given us what we need to know, and then we spent so much time in this movie seeing it play out in long form. It would have been better to just start, like, because he even starts the movie off with narration being like, how did I end up here? Well, let me tell you the story. That it's almost like, well, why don't you just quickly tell the story of like, you've already arrived? And because I mean, like, we're in 1992 now, like the VHS is a thing. People can see the Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and catch up. Like it's not going to be difficult. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I think it was just the easy way out. Or just because it
had the movie.
It required less work. I mean, clearly, if this is an 81-minute movie and 20 minutes of it is padding, it just created an like, this could have been a television special that was an hour long.
Yeah, but I mean, again, because also the strongest thing for me, and I mean, it just may be my bias for like Evil Dead 2, but the strongest part for me follows all of that, like from the moment we get him to the windmill sequence. And I love that, like, he sees a mirror and immediately shatters it, because we know as an audience, he's had a bad history with mirrors. We've already watched him reach into a puddle, and we've also watched his dark self or whatever reach out to him and like grab him and, say, we just met at our girlfriend or whatever he says, we're not okay. So the fact that like it backfires and all of these tiny little ashes start like that part of like the slapstick I actually didn't mind, because even though it really kind of feels like it's leaning into the silly, there's familiarity there. It's like taking one of the things that worked before, but enhancing it, like, okay, putting a spin on it. He's learned his lesson now, but how is it still going to bite him in the ass, even though he's taking precautions, so mirror self won't be able to fuck with him this time. And then there's tons of allusions throughout this movie to other movies or even like books, like when the tiny little hymns tie him up and and he wakes up like strapped to the ground. That's Gulliver's Travels, which for some reason is in my consciousness, and I have never seen a filmed version of it in its entirety, and I've never read the book, but just the image in and of itself, I think every edition of Gulliver's Travels,
like they just like this is my closest relationship to Gulliver's Travels is Army of Darkness.
Right.
I think that the thing is like, okay, because like when I first saw this, like I'm not saying that I hate this movie. Like I think that I share the exact same sentiments as you. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh on things right now, but when I first saw this, like I enjoyed it. I was probably like 14, 15. I don't know, maybe my comedic sensibilities were different then, and something like this was very entertaining to me. And I do think like the last time I watched all these movies was when the 2013 one came out. So it has been 10 years. And I even remember the last time I watched this movie back then, I wasn't as into it as the first time I watched it. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's maybe this is one of those like one-time viewings. We've definitely gone over a few movies like that.
I mean, there's again, like, because of the sequence in the middle and everything, like, I mean, I'll just have to like leave the room and do laundry for the first 20 minutes or something like that, because the whole eye on the shoulder gag is another allusion to a movie. I was going to do the research before, and I ended up getting bogged down in other stuff before we recorded, so I don't remember. If anybody knows, DM me. But there's this movie that I watched growing up called It Came from Hollywood, which is basically a bunch of comedians, Gilda Radner, John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Cheech and Chong, all kind of narrating subgenres of horror history, like talking, but like really weird subgenres, like movies about brains, movies about gorillas, like, I mean, we're going way back into like 1950s B movie territory, Yeah. And there was one film that I'll never forget. I guess I saw kind of like the reveal of the movie, where a man, for whatever reason, he's in his own bedroom and he's just going, and he's clutching his shoulder, going, and I'm like, what is going on? They only show clips too. I didn't see the whole movie. He undoes his robe and pulls it off and reveals his shoulder, and there's a little eyeball on it, and he goes, while he's looking at the eyeball, looking back at him on his shoulder. It looks exactly like the eyeball on Bruce Campbell's shoulder in Army of Darkness, only in black and white. And it just made me think, like, okay, is Sam Raimi like, winking and nodding to like some 1950s kitsch, because I think that was part of the movie monster sequence.
I mean, look,
hosted as a little girl.
I love body horror, but I don't like the way that they do it here. Like it's so, again, it's so slapstick. It's so Three Stooges.
Yeah. And also, there were two shots in particular. There's probably more.
Yeah.
But the two that stood out to me that were largely kind of like inside baseball as far as the franchise was concerned, like allusions to things that had come before. The first one was Ash falling into another puddle outside, like in the woods, while the Evil Dead was chasing him. And I was like, oh, that happens in... I couldn't even remember if it was the second one or the first one, but in one of them, I have this vivid image of Bruce Campbell, like, plunging kind of, like, headfirst into a puddle, and it just going... And it happened again here. And then there's also, of course, him putting the cross into the ground, clap of thunder, lightning strike and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, that's Dead by Dawn. That's Evil Dead 2 there. So I'm like, okay, cool. So fan service doesn't go unappreciated entirely by me. It's all part of this sequence that's ongoing. That's still kind of my favorite part about the whole movie. From the windmill sequence into the cemetery when he has to go find the Necronomicon. The reason I did the quote that I did is because I think it's one of the most memorable parts of this movie. I think it's even, if you want to post in your story, an Army of Darkness clip and put something up against it, you can select in the music something that a song that somebody opened with the Army of Darkness quote where he's going Klaatu Barata and then some kind of like heavy metal sting that follows, so it's appreciated by fans. But everything that leads up to it, like the whole bit with like the two other books, like there was gonna be 3 books, and I'm like, okay, this is fun. Everything with just Bruce Campbell being his Bruce Campbell-y self, I absolutely am on board for. I wish it could have lasted a little bit longer, because it definitely did in Evil Dead 2, and that was part of what made me love that movie as much as I could, because it's not just nonsense. That's another thing. It's not just nonsense. It's almost kind of like in this elemental level, man versus environment. And there's something about Bruce Campbell that isn't necessarily every man, but that is because it's accessible and because he's so likable and so watchable. There is something that makes it so easy to plug into his situation. So no matter what bad decisions he's making, you're on board with him. And no matter what great decisions he's making, you're also like rooting for him. Like, yeah, that'll work. Oh my God, that's great. You're a badass, That's one of the strongest things. Yeah, that's one of the strongest things about the entire franchise for me is our relationship to Bruce Campbell as an audience. Mm-hmm. So the movie's at its strongest when I get to plug into that,
Yeah. Yeah, but, I just feel, just the same sentiments as before. Like, I feel with the second movie, it almost is that level of nonsense that's what I glom to. Whereas here, it's interesting that you say you don't like the opening part, because as much as I agree with you in terms of like, we're just doing a long form version of what we had finished off at. The beginning of the movie is probably the part that I like the most, because that's setting up the dilemma and everything. Because we don't really get, like, in terms of like what we get at the end of Evil Dead 2, it's very, thinly written. We don't know what's going on. It's we just know he wants to get home, and we already know that anyway. But at least like it does establish, where he is, when he is, what these like warring factions are within this medieval community. And I actually do like the openings, just like, when he's in the pit and the spikes are coming in and he has to fight the thing and crawls out, and then he basically regains his power, because there is a subtle difference from the end of Evil Dead 2, whereas that he just shoots something and everyone's bowing down before him. Here he doesn't necessarily win them over, but he almost rules with fear. And he knows that, like, he recognizes that, and he kind of uses that to his advantage. And I'm still on board for this part of the movie. Like, I agree with everything you said of just in terms of like, we're just taking what we've already seen and kind of fleshing it out to pad it. And while it is padding, it's still the part of the movie that I'm the most like on board for. It's just like when he goes off on that adventure, and then that's when it really gets into the comedic stuff. That's when I start to lose interest, because I don't think that the comedy is as deftly handled as it is in the second movie. But then when we come back, but then in the third act, when we come back to the castle, that part, like, I'm also like completely bored with the entire third act, because I feel like everything is so like all the action is just the same. It's like, that's where I feel like everything was like carefully planned and choreographed, because it's just like sword fights and like little action bits here and there. That I just feel like we're just taking our time inching towards the end of the movie, that for a movie that's 81 minutes long, this feels a lot longer to me because of how crafted it is at that point. Like it just drags for me.
Screenings that I've watched it alone have definitely dragged more so than screenings where I watch it with other people, because there's always something to talk about while it's going on. Yeah. I've never seen it in a theater. It'd be curious to sit among a group of, a crowd, because it's now a cult movie. So to sit among like an incredibly loyal group who is excited to see it, and to see, I don't know, because I can be susceptible to, my audience's energy. If I wonder if I would enjoy it more if I could see it through the eyes of people who absolutely adore it. But because I do agree, like as per usual, like I agree with you, but for different reasons about the third act. Because this is the thing, there's things that stood out to me, but some of them are for better, some of them are for worse. Even the ones that are for better are kind of like more like, oh, that's interesting, as opposed to, yeah. Like I appreciate the Jason and the Argonauts reference with all of the skeletons, the stop motion animation skeletons kind of like rising up and everything like that, because that's something that I connect to, because all the people who put together practical effects for the movies that were coming out in the 80s when I was a kid would reference Jason and the Argonauts influencing them when they were children, because they didn't, at that point, stop motion animation was still like this dazzling, amazing, how did you do that kind of thing. And to this day, people actually still don't really understand how, you make a skeleton move deftly and interact and have a personality and have an intention, and like it is an art form, claymation, if you want to call it that, stop motion animation. But so the fact that there's a little of that built in, I appreciated. And then you're right to play against that, swing in the opposite direction, because that's something that I'm just like, oh, that's nice. I'm not like, I'm not like, wow. I'm just kind of like, aw, sweet. But then we get to everything with Ernberth Davis, Sheila, and as if she weren't already kind of like problematic enough, because we haven't really addressed it yet, but we kind of have, but like more specifically, her character moves into frame and just kind of like says lines either aggressively or affectionately, and usually gets pushback. Basically, like if she's angry, Ash is there saying like, hey, lady, I did this, and so you better like, she's like, oh, but always with her face. There's always just like this passive reflection and reevaluation of like her actions. And it happens the same way when she's like, when he goes back to the kingdom and is like telling them like he got the Necronomicon, but he didn't say it. He kind of said it, and everybody's starting to like lose faith in him and walk away. But she's like, I still believe that you're going to, and she comes with him with all this affection and belief and idolatry, and he's just kind of like, listen, baby, I just want to get home. So like, and just kind of walks away, and calls him a coward. But even that isn't like to his face. It sounds like it was ADR'd, like on the heels of her just walking away. Just like, well, we have to have her say something. Let's just bring Ernberth Davis into the recording studio and have her just call him a coward, because we need to make her have a point of view, I guess.
I'm just thinking of.
Yeah.
No, go finish what your thought there.
Well, it's a whole thing. So
I was gonna say I'm just thinking of Beth Davids in 13 Ghosts playing Kalina, to F. Murray Abraham at the end there, when she's just like, but I've done everything you wanted me to, like, because she initially came into that movie and she was presented as being this like feisty powerhouse, strong female character who had a will of her own, and she was opposing this. She was like PETA for ghosts or whatever. And then we find out that she's actually like she's in cahoots with him, and she's essentially just a hench person. and she's
Yeah, and
reduced to this like,
spineless.
you know, she's just like, oh, I did everything you wanted me to. Like, did I do good? And all I can think is that Sheila walked so Kalina could run. It's just,
I mean,
she does have a thing for playing these characters who just don't really, have very much agency.
Maybe Sheila
that's kind of her thing.
So Kalina could walk. Like Kalina does not run, but that's the thing. Is like, okay, because then after just kind of like largely being this woman who's defined by her relationship to this man. I mean, even like, I know it's supposed to be funny. It does make me a little wincy when they're in, what is it, the barn or wherever the fuck they are. And she tries to leave and he goes after her and grabs her and she's like resisting or something. And it's supposed to be like this big, like kind of like bygone era of romance thing where
it looks like the cover of a Harlequin novel that instance. Yeah.
But still largely male gazy somehow because she's just relenting. But we don't get, because that's the thing, we never get her point of view in it. She's just kind of there as a pawn, like, oh, I guess I like this. Sure. He's like, give me some sugar, baby, and then they kiss, and okay, that's what their relationship is now. I like the line, but that's it. The line that he says,
it's quotable. But, like, he brings the funny in that regard,
right? But then when she gets abducted by the Army of the Dead, never referred to as the Army of Darkness, I believe. I think they're always called the Army of the Dead in the movie.
Yeah. Well, the title of the movie is actually like when it comes up, it says Bruce Campbell versus Army of Darkness.
Oh my god!
I don't know. I don't think there was a "the" in there. It's just like Bruce Campbell versus Army of Darkness.
Huh?
Which
did I see? I don't. I watched the old. I got it from the library, the old DVD. I thought I don't remember if that's what it said on mine, but anyway.
Oh, you borrowed it?
I burrowed it. I'm sorry. I have to repeat what I say, or what I hear. Anyway, but okay. So she gets abducted, and she's over there with the Army of the Dude. And what is the name of that character? Like the dark Bruce who is now gone full kind of Gollum face and
Ash, is it not?
Evil Ash? Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So Evil Ash is sitting there and is standing there and is equally as taken with her. And doesn't he even say, give me some sugar, baby? He does.
He says the same line to her and she screams.
Yeah. And this time it's not fun because we watch him. Not only does he force a kiss on her, but he starts to strip her top off. I mean, we're far away, so we don't see anything, but that doesn't make it any less disgusting to behold. And I don't think I'm just looking at it through like 2023 lenses. I've always been uncomfortable by that part. All right, let's put it this way. I've never been into it. I've always been like, really? Like I miss the screams of what's her name in Evil Dead 2. Just, like, can I have some of that? Like, can I have some fun? But something where I'm watching like a woman be victimized, but I can like get on board with it. Like, not this shit. Because she got no power. She's got no humor. She's just kind of waifish and pretty.
Well, I mean, she didn't get power until she became a deadited. Until she got consumed. Yeah.
And overpowered again. But this time in a way that like really made me uncomfortable.
And was that Emmett Davids like when she was in the makeup? Because it did not look like her at all. Like what, like the reveal.
Your guess is as good as mine. Sorry, folks, we're not here for the trivia. We're just here to share our opinions.
But I do really, I think like one line I do like is, when she says to him, like, you found me beautiful once or pretty once or whatever. He's just like, baby, you got real ugly.
Okay, so you like that?
I just think it's funny. It's just...
Okay, I mean, that's funny. Okay, because for me, that was part of my... Here in my laundry list of the third act, like things that felt as much as I agree with you, it feels kind of put together. Yeah. There are things about the exchanges here, the lines that feel like thought up, not even on the day of, but like thought up right before they rolled cameras, rolled film on it. Like, just kind of like, so what are you going to say? She's like, well, I mean, he was taken with me and now he's horrified. So what if I say, like, you found me beautiful once? Then I say, Bruce, what do you want to say? I'll say, honey, you got real ugly. And okay, let's shoot it.
No, I don't agree. I think this is all planned out well in advance. Because this whole movie feels like it was...
Okay, for me, that exchange just doesn't feel inspired. It doesn't feel... Because it's so blunt and so just kind of, like, unimaginative. I'm not
But that's how I feel about this movie in general, so maybe that's just my take on it.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that took... I mean, again, like, the planning, I feel, in the design and in the execution of, like, the practical effects and everything like that, and even in the bits, even though it's less my taste, I still enjoy watching the bits.
Well, let me just say, like, I think visually I do love this movie. I love the novelty, the stop motion and all that. So I don't want that to be kind of lumped in with my negative takeaway from it. I just think it's like it's less than basic. Like, there's not really, again, with me it always falls back to, like, the story, and I just don't think that it's fully realized. Like, I love the idea of, because we did play with this in the second movie of like the evil Ash and the darker side of that, because I always love when you have a villain that is kind of like the darker side of the hero, but here there's nothing really. Like, again, there's no depth or subtext, anything. He's essentially just, like, splintered into two parts, and one of them was good and one of them was evil. But there's really, what makes one good and what makes one evil. Like, they were even having that conversation when he first popped out of him, and it was just like, well, like, you're good, Ash, and I'm evil, Ash, and all that shit. And, if you like, think about it, just, like, both of them kind of suck. It's not to say that I take major umbrage with Ash, because I do love the character in general. But in this movie, like, this is probably, like, my least favorite of, like, his not necessarily performance, but just, like, stories. Because I do hate the whole thing about him just like, I just want to get home and blah, blah, blah. Because he's almost him, like, I guess his reason for changing his mind is because she got swooped up and taken away. So now it's just kind of like, oh, well, if I was going to stay here and be stuck here forever, at least I knew that I had my girlfriend, or, this woman who would just, like, gladly, do whatever I wanted. Now she's gone, and now it's just like, well, no, this is bullshit. Like, I'm gonna fight for this. And he gets up there and he's standing on his soapbox, and he's essentially giving everyone shit for doing exactly what, like, because he's just like, oh, go ahead and run. It's just like, 2 minutes ago, that's what you were gonna do. Like, flee back to your time. So and nobody calls him out on it. Like, that's another thing. It's just like, he gets it. It just goes back to, like, the failing upwards. It's just like, you fucked up and you continue to fuck up, and then when you kind of see the error of your ways, you're not even kind of admitting to it. You're just guilting everyone else into helping you, or just relying on other people. So just like, at least with the first Evil Dead is like, we already discussed that. It was more so just like final boy by default. But at least in, like, Evil Dead 2, he had to fight for his survival in that movie. Like, he was put through the ringer there. All that shit that happened, like, I felt that, and it was hilarious and mostly, but at least there was a story for the character. Here, it's just like, well, I'm here, and I'm going to manipulate these other people into, like, helping me out. So I don't know. It just, in the grand scheme of everything, and not including the series because I haven't seen it, I just feel like this is a very weakly written screenplay, just of just like a continuation of the story. Like, I think that if I really had to point out what works well, it is the visual stuff and just like thematically it falls flat for me. And you know where I've been lately, it's just like everything is amazing except for the screenwriting. Mostly for newer movies, but now, you know, watching older ones too. Just if I see something to nitpick, it's usually the screenplay.
I see. I mean, again, like your case in point, in terms of just like the exchanges and everything like that. Another one that I wrote for this climax is just when Ash is going up against Evil Ash, and Evil Ash says, "You're going down." And Ash says, he sees, I guess, a staircase, and he just says, "I'm going up." And then he's just like, "I'm coming for you." And I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I'm so, this is so basic. I mean, maybe somebody's laughing at this. Maybe it's somebody's favorite exchange of the movie. I don't know, but ugh. So, I mean, that, again, like, case in point for me, like, I do feel like the writing, if we can call it that, or if we can call it the improvisation, whatever, that they were putting together, putting together like the exchanges by the third act of this movie. There was so much going on. This is what I imagined in my head as I was watching it. I just felt like there's so much going on technically that the thing that's suffering is kind of like not even just the story, but the humor. Like, I'm starting, because I mean, as much as I like watching a little, you know, like gangly skeleton, you know, kind of going ah and everything like that. After a while, when that's kind of like all that sequence is comprised of, it gets old. It gets tiring. I even wondered, like, I wrote down here, the skeletons are horny with a question mark, because they keep kind of jumping on women, just kind of like, "Hey, baby, come on." And I'm like, what are you going to do? You're a skeleton. I mean, you have no nerves. I mean, I don't know how the Evil Dead works, but I mean, again, like, if we could have gotten some kind of like, we already kind of know about the Deadites, that they are playful and that they aren't profound. It's not like they come out and start quoting Shakespeare and Chaucer and, you know, like everything. Yeah. They don't have a lot to share. That's a lot of dead by dawn, and but it's, I don't know, it just kind of felt out of step with everything we've seen prior. And then the fact that, like, the skeletons seem to be taking on, like, this whole other kind of, like, persona, almost like they were just little horny Beetlejuices chasing after the women and everything, with the honk honk and everything like that. I just had nothing. All it did was give me more questions.
Well, and
that said, I do.
That said, yeah.
Well, because that said, I'm going to go into something positive. So if you want to jump on the heels of, like, the negative shit that I just brought up.
No, go for your positive.
Well, I mean, I do have to say the onset, because my fatigue came as the sequence progressed. From the onset of it, as they were kind of like approaching the castle and everything like that, it did start to evoke childhood memories of Labyrinth. 2 movies, actually. Labyrinth, with the battle at the Goblin Kingdom and everything like that. Even though I feel like that feels much more planned out and executed in a way that reads, where I get the humorous beats here and there. This one felt a little more scattered, but it also evoked strange memories, I guess, just because of, like, an undead army or whatever. It made me think about Bedknobs and Broomsticks, when Angela Lansbury at the climax of the movie takes all of these, like, medieval armor pieces and animates them, and they're not ghosts. They're just kind of like moving things that are moving because they have a spell, but they read like ghosts, and they have to go battle the Nazis and everything. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm down for this. Again, like, the parts where this movie evokes other movies for me work. I just wish I could feel like, as much as they evoke memories of other films, that they kind of develop, you know, like, build upon that. Like, okay, let's go beyond that and do something those movies didn't do or couldn't do because of their limitations, because of a rating, because they're a family film, or because of, like, limits, because of you know, what they were limited to with their special effects at the time. If it could dazzle me a little bit more in that vein, I probably wouldn't start yawning throughout, as that sequence progresses.
Yeah, there's a difference between homage and inspiration, and I feel that For a lot of this, it is most like those allusions that you speak of are mostly homages. Where I'd say for something like Scream, at least like the first one in particular, that feels more inspirational, even though it still can be homage. What I was just looking up that I wanted to say is that every single Evil Dead movie, including the new one that comes out, is both written and directed by the same person who writes and directs it. Not all 5 movies the same, because Sam Raimi did 1, 2, and Army of Darkness, but he wrote and directed them. Fede Alvarez wrote and directed Evil Dead 2013, and Lee Cronin is writing and directing this new one coming out. So that's interesting for this franchise, that every movie is kind of like the vision of the director, that whatever's on the script kind of is what the movie is directed as. And that's why looking at that now, I can see there's probably a lot of instances where in the script there is like technical notes and what are we going to do in this portion of that. And that's why I feel like, especially with Army of Darkness, it does feel planned with at the end of that movie, where just a lot of it is just kind of like that. So I mean, maybe dialogue wise, maybe some of it was made up on the spot, but if it was more so to cater to what had already been planned out technically, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, obviously I don't know the first thing about screenwriting other than to critique it. And I certainly don't know the first thing about directing, but I imagine that to write a movie with the intention of passing it off to a director to direct, and then writing a movie for yourself to direct it, like that is going to be a completely different undertaking. So I imagine that like it maybe because I don't want to, like, a lot of my favorite movies are written and directed by the same person, so I couldn't really speak to if there is a disconnect there, like just between the creative process, because it feels like if for all these movies, if they did have that, the one person at the helm who it was at least covering the most important facets of the creative process, that the vision would be a little bit more streamlined. And I definitely I feel that way for the first 2 movies, but here it just I don't know where I'm going. I'm just running around with that.
No, I agree with you in terms of I mean, it all comes down to, we've discussed this before, especially with projects that are helmed that we kind of find less than favor with, but they're helmed by people we respect, like Wes Craven with, what was the werewolf movie called again?
Cursed.
The one we covered.
Kevin Williamson, that written, one.
And Wes Craven directed. I mean, we those are 2 people who we
Bob
should
Weinstein
definitely
hampered.
Yeah, exactly. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's because even if you are writing and directing something all your own, or whether you're 2 people who get along really well, who see kind of eye to eye, and who are both really, really good at what you do, it's still not completely on your shoulders everything that transpires afterwards. There can be studio interference, there can be time issues, as far as the scheduling of getting a shot and getting the film in the can.
There must have been studio interference if there was the the theatrical cut and the director's cut. This is also a studio released film, this is Universal distributed, at least, whereas I feel like I know the first 2 were very low independent productions. So I mean, it's very possible, we've seen that in other franchises, with Universal specifically, Child's Play 3. So I mean, who knows, maybe we should have done more research with this, but we're just going off of our feelings.
Well, I'm even looking over the locations that they shot at, and it's predominantly Southern California, and I mean really predominantly kind of Los Angeles and Los Angeles adjacent.
I mean, most of it looked like sound stages.
But I mean, like when they're out in the open, like there's a lot of agua dulce, which I've hiked at. There's the Bronson Caves over in Griffith Park, which is in Los Angeles. I mean, it's. I know that the studio is a lot more likely to interfere if you're shooting in the same location that the studio is housed in.
Yeah.
If you're shooting abroad, which is another reason I think a lot of in addition to like the budgetary kind of freedom, you know, the fact that it costs less to shoot in, say, Hungary or Bulgaria or, you know, wherever you Czechoslovakia, whatever, but or Czech Republic rather. But you also get a freedom because studios are less likely to interfere with something that is abroad, that they can't, you know, just kind of like take, you know, a drive and be there in 20 minutes and look and check up on you. If you are in a different time zone and outside the country, what are they going to do, really? Ultimately, they have to let you put the movie together or shoot it and then bring it back here and put it together and then kind of like be like, oh, these are the parts you have that you've shot that we invested the money in. Okay, I guess we're releasing this, you know? I would assume.
Listen to this. I'm just on the IMDb. In the original draft, Ash lost an eye. The original draft didn't go into medieval times until the second half, with the first half serving as a big budget recap of both Evil Dead 1 and 2. We would have also seen more about Ash's personal life, such as him in college and working at S-Mart. The Raimis wrote the script this way because they didn't think Universal would fund a sequel to a low-budget indie film and instead planned to make it a standalone partial remake, but were excited when they greenlit a straightforward Evil Dead sequel and decided to scrap nearly anything involving the original cabin in the woods besides a brief prologue. So I mean, like that sounds to me more like Sam Raimi was standing in his own way. Like he just like had these preconceived notions of like what the studio would do, and then kind of like self-sabotage just to set himself up how he felt was the best way possible.
To try and accommodate the studio and the restraints that you anticipate they're already going to be putting on you, which is interesting because, again, that's another thing to think about is that filmmakers are people. So even if someone is writing and directing,
are they?
Seems to hold no, they are.
Because like seem producers, but
right. No, because even if they seem to have like so much control over like, or, you know, at least the guise of control over at least what goes on like in their screenplay and on the set and everything like that, they're still people who make mistakes and who can make errors in judgment and who can be distracted by other aspects of their life and could be trying to make one movie when really what the public is craving is another movie. Because another thing that baffles me, that really actually kind of bothered me the more I thought about it after I finished watching it today, taking my notes and everything. Sheila came back, and that created a whole ethical question for me with the movies that preceded, because if this is indeed a direct sequel, as it seems like now it's been confirmed it is, of course, and we know it is, but now we have confirmation. What does that mean for every poor person who was deadited in the previous films who got killed, but always in the name of like, no, once you're a deadite, and you can't be saved from that. The person you love is gone, so you got to destroy the evil, because no one has ever recovered from deaditism.
Ash did.
I mean, well, okay, he didn't, but okay. But that was on his own. He was feeling.
So then what you're saying is that if you just left so if you just left a person alone and let them, you know, if like poor Cheryl was just kept in the fruit cellar and they're just like let it pass, and she would have been fine afterwards.
Well, that's the camp of Evil Dead 2 for me also, is the fact that because we see Ash get evil deaded or deadited, and that he actually does come back from it. The reason he comes back from it is because like this is what I was just headcanon again. He loved so deeply, and his humanity was so inexplicably, you know, like undeniably present in him, that like anything that would bring back the loss of Linda and that would allow him to miss her and, you know, feel angst over the loss of her, would expel, you know, the Deadites, or expel the, you know, the evil dead from the body.
Yeah,
and everything
I mean, even the idea that they when a person in the past movies had become deadited or possessed or whatever,
right.
the first inkling usually was just like, well, we have to kill them now.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there was, because like I think Linda in the first one, like he just sort of like, because remember she was just sitting in the corner and he was like yelling at her to shut up. I don't think that there was the urgency to get rid of her at that point. But I mean, that's such an interesting angle to explore. If you know, had people who were like, no, we like, there's a person in there, like that's still our friend. And you know what? It's been so long again since I've seen 2013. I do recall maybe there was something like that in there because Mia. But you know, maybe that's why I like, or at least I remember liking that more, because there is more of that humanity to it. Of just like that, the dilemma of just like, you know, what do we do in this situation? Like, do we kill this person because they're now possessed and like that's who they are now, or is there a way to salvage their soul or something like that? So I feel that it's another like lazy screenwriting thing of just kind of like in this franchise where no, we just got to kill them, like that's it. But then obviously the inconsistency of Ash and Sheila in this movie coming back. I don't know. I feel like it's just one of those things that is just like whenever it's convenient for the story, that's when they'll use it. And like as far as Linda is concerned, she was just a disposable character, whereas Sheila is not, apparently.
Well, you also made me think about the fact that, like, you know, the prophecy in the Necronomicon itself spoke of a chosen one. So if we're to believe that Ash is indeed the chosen one, which it seems for every, you know, all intents and purposes, he seems to be that, exactly that, because he fulfills the prophecy. Yeah. Wouldn't that also make a case for why he's the only person who could be kind of deadited, but still have that inner turmoil that would like eject, you know, the evil dead from his
But okay, but
self?
here's the thing: is Ash the chosen one, or was he just the one that got sent back in time? And it's sort of like this time paradox where, you know, the time, you know, in the second movie where, you know, he is living, that somehow there's like history books of him that exist that show that he was back in that time. Like it's one of those things where it's just like, because he did go back in time, not until the third movie, but he was there, so it just kind of like manifested into like current day literature of just like showing that he was there. Because I don't get a sense of like, because Ash isn't like, you know, he's not like Buffy, you know, he's not like the one and only who can defeat the evil dead. He's just a guy, and he just happened to get lucky and you know, survived, was able to survive and you know, get to the past. Like I never.
But wouldn't that even make a case for why he is capable of failing upwards the way he has? Is that he is indeed the chosen one? Like that's why.
Well, now at this point, this is your headcanon. Like
no, I'm asking a question. I'm not. I'm
no. I don't.
Elements from the movie.
I know. I
I
understand that. No, I don't agree that him failing upwards. I think that's just kind of like the Sam Raimi, just like this is the modern hero of this time. It's someone who like this macho guy who fails upwards and, you know, gets everything in the end, because that's just how the world works. I don't know.
Okay.
I never
let us know in the.
I mean,
let us know in the comment section what you think.
Here's the thing: you might have insight because you've watched 3 seasons of a series where maybe there is some sort of establishment of a prophecy, or, you know, him being a chosen one. Is that the case?
I am not making. All I am doing is asking questions. I am making absolutely no declarative statements. I am merely inquiring.
I mean, unless it's established in the canon, which at that point I'll be like, okay, fine, if they wrote it that way. But from everything I've seen in these 3 movies, it does not appear to me at all like Ash is some sort of prophecy. Like he's just more so. It's like a time paradox where he was already in the past, but it was like another life. Like time travel is so hard. I mean, it's it's like when you get to Stab 5. It deals with time travel, and it's just by far the worst.
Okay, now you're actually giving credit to the Stab series. Okay, whatever.
Well, no, I'm just it's
anyone who knows
funny,
Zack Cherry.
It's funny that
and his adherence to the
just
Stab.
In terms of like us ranking the Evil Dead series at this point, and both agreeing that Evil Dead 3: Army of Darkness is the worst, and that having to do with time travel, it's just an interesting parallel. That's all I'll say.
I mean, I didn't bring up time travel once in the reasons of why I think I ranked it as low as I did. But anyway, the reason I ask is just because it seems to be it's the first time that it's introduced the possibility of kind of like that vampire lore where if you kill the head vampire or the vampire who turned this vampire off to the side, if you kill the main vampire, then the vampire off to the side gets to turn back and become human. And I feel like that's the first time, and it's a little late, we're on to the 3rd movie to be introducing kind of like new rules about like the way the Deadites kind of like rule, because that's another thing. Ash also didn't become de-Deadited because anyone destroyed the Evil Dead, like the point of origin that like turned him. That was like some kind of like self-isolated case incident, like where like the again, like his inner turmoil, like kind of like just ejected the thing, and he went on to be able to be the thing that could defeat it with help from the other people who comprised the gang, the little Scooby gang in the Dead by Dawn. You can't even call them the Scooby gang.
No,
they're so not the Scooby gang.
Yeah,
but okay, but
again, all I'll say is that if there is some sort of prophecy or anything like that, like Sam Raimi and is it Ivan Raimi did not do a sufficient enough job in factoring that into the screenplay of any of these movies.
Well, that's my whole point about like why Sheila coming back. Then I'm just like, well, then why bring her? Why? Because that's another thing. I think that's another thing that like kind of like lacks appeal for me with this film is in addition to all the action movie bullshit, it's got that happy ending bullshit, which kind of turns back into horror. Thank God when he gets brought back to present day. That I appreciate, because if it would have ended with him. Like with neither ending, with just like kind of like that happy ending with the two of them, I would have been like, oh dear God, what the fuck am I watching? Like he lives and she lives. Fuck this shit. That's not what horror is. And
no, I do. Like, I do like the ending scene a lot.
Yeah, that sequence. I'm just kind of like, that's the movie I would have watched. It would have been interesting.
Like the Evil Dead in the city, followed him back from the cabin.
I mean. Because again, like it's so short and it's so compartmentalized, and not even, I can't even say tone wise, but just in terms of like what the movie seems to be comprised of. Like I said, like the first 20 minutes seem to be kind of like, here's a recap of everything you missed that happened at the end, the last 90 seconds of the second movie. And then the middle, you've got like this wonderful like man versus environment, Bruce Campbell doing bits kind of thing, much more slapsticky. And then it turns into this kind of like living versus the undead battle. And then it's over. I
just want to sorry, interrupt you. Apparently there's a 90-minute US TV version. I think that's included in the set I have. So it's just that has the most restored scenes. So to answer your question from earlier, I guess there is more content, but do you really want to watch
what
that?
Is it?
Exactly. If the 81 minutes was already enough.
If it's more Bruce Campbell doing bits, because that is the quickest the time passes for me in this movie. The rest of the time I am kind of like, if I had a coin in my hand, I'd just be flipping it and checking on, going heads or tails, and then flipping it again and going heads or tails, just kind of sustaining until the movie's over.
Well, I mean, just to get back to the end scene there, because that actually felt more Evil Dead 2 to me than this movie, Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of liked it. Here's an interesting trivia tidbit. This was the first and last studio film Bruce Campbell starred in as the lead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. He was an indie baby.
Well, it's not a dig against the movie either. It's just a dig against
that's
who wouldn't cast him as the lead in like their mainstream movies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because well, I don't know how much more I have to say about this movie.
All right. Well, I'm just trying to see if there was anything more added or just in here about the ending or anything that was changed by the studio. Apparently, the one thing that the studio demanded was because Sam Raimi wanted to call it Evil Dead 3: Army of Darkness, but they were like, no, call it Army of Darkness.
Again, this stigma attached to like the increasing numbers attached to a title. I don't understand.
Well, even like Scream 6 that's coming out here.
Screevy.
Because I mean, that's how they cheated. Because obviously Scream 5 was just Scream, but here it's like they've blended the 6 into the M, so it's like it kind of works. But even in trailers that I've watched, at the very end, you hear like the trailer voice go "Scream" coming to theaters or whatever. So it's like they're not even calling it Scream 6; they're just calling it Scream.
Why? It's so stupid to me. Okay, whatever. So I am looking forward to if they make a 7th one though, calling it Screevy. That's what I'm going to call that
Screevy.
one. Screevy. Yeah, but I will say, just kind of like in conclusion on this movie, like. Yeah. I felt increasingly as the film was progressing. For the first time, I got the strongest sense, like, is Sam Raimi just like playing a prank on us? Like how long can I get them to sit through this and think it's like an actual movie? And I don't mean to insult anyone who may be a giant stan of this film. It's just my reality, and I'm sharing it here. I hold no prejudice against anyone who enjoys this movie. Good for you. You are equipped with some kind of skill that I was not, because I can only appreciate parts of it. But no, because it just kind of feels like, I don't know, like, and then we'll do this, you know? Like,
yeah. No.
And then what if we like, I don't know, just put this in there. They'll think it's a movie. It'll be cool. That's going to be my Sam Raimi voice now. Just like, gosh. Okay, let's make this movie and let's go. I don't know. Like he's some stoner.
Oh, this came out the same year as Schindler's List, which was also Embeth Davidtz appeared later this year in Schindler's List.
I was going to say, why is that pertinent? Embeth Davidtz, okay. She is virtually unrecognizable to me in this movie compared with every other film I've seen her in.
She's got range.
But she's so young.
Same with Bridget Fonda.
Yeah, but I mean, I can. She's not, the only reason I can't recognize Bridget Fonda in this role is because she has so little screen time. Yeah, I would have loved more Bridget Fonda in this movie. That would have been great.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Embeth Davidtz. Like, I'm glad she was.
Oh, me too.
Now I want to watch Matilda.
But again, aww.
The house in Matilda that you'll love/hate this. The house of the teacher, the evil one, is the same exterior shot of Omega Beta Zeta in Scream 2.
I don't hate that. That's just very you.
It's a very niche fact.
All roads lead back to Scream on this pod.
And Sarah Michelle Gellar. If it's not Scream, it's Sarah Michelle Gellar. Sometimes a marriage of both of them if we're talking about that one little scene that she was in, 2 scenes that she was in.
Right. And if it's neither of them, it's Judy Greer. That's just how we roll here.
True, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm done looking at the trivia for this movie. Okay, that was interesting. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about this either, other than I'm excited for when we finally get to talk about the fourth movie, and I'm excited to see the new one. I think that it looks interesting, and I mean, I know that you didn't watch this trailer, so I don't want to say anything, but I'll just say that like it looks like there might be more exploration of things that we discussed that we wish that we had seen in this. So I definitely feel that there's a maturity to the fourth movie, which I based on what I've seen for trailers of the fifth movie, I hope is there as well. That these are movies that are taken serious. I mean, I still hope that there's humor in the new movie, but I hope that it's strikes the right tonal balance and knows what it is, rather than trying to be, winking at the audience or just homaging things too much, because this is a very varied and interesting franchise. It's all over the place.
And because of that reason, I feel like it like almost anything goes. Like, just make the best movie you can make. Yeah. Is the attitude I'm walking in with, and it can be whatever you need it to be.
And again, like, I don't think that any of these movies are bad. Like, this is my least favorite one, but I don't think that this is a bad movie. It's just one that I'm just,
I have for sure sat through worse movies for this pod, even. Yeah, but it's just not my fave.
Well, I know your precious Texas Chainsaw franchise,
But even in that, like, we covered that entire franchise, folks, and there are some stinkers. I would watch this over...
we covered it in quick, rapid succession for each movie.
Yeah.
I think at some point we might revisit special entries individually.
I have a lot to say.
I know. But let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people on purpose.
So, Eduardo, who is our cherry on top? I'm having a lot of difficulty with this segment here for this movie, because I don't know who is the character I liked the best or the worst or anything, because you mentioned it at the top of the episode. It's just like this movie doesn't really invoke a lot of strong feelings towards characters one way or another. They're just kind of there.
Yeah, it's like watching a living chess game or something like that. Pieces are moving, and you don't really get invested in anybody except Ash, which is why I would make a case, Ash. But because also, that's another thing. One thing I didn't get to touch on I kind of alluded to. I mean, I equated him with Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd. But Bruce Campbell, one thing I did like in terms of just like his duality when he has to play against himself and face himself, I definitely know which Ash I'm looking at, and it's not just because one Ash is evil and, making his eyes really big and everything like that, and because the other one is kind of like more stoic and got this quizzical expression trying to decipher what's going on and, what am I going to do with you and everything like that. But it's also like, I feel like there's performance there, like there's intention behind the eyes. There's a mind. There are wheels turning inside Ash's mind while he is beholding, this new adversary, shall we say. Right. So, I mean, I still find him interesting, and I still get traces of Ash in this movie. I don't think it's to Bruce Campbell's detriment at all for any of the negatives that I brought up for this movie. So I think there's a case to be made for Ash. I can't think of anybody else that the movie's about,
Yeah.
So that's my choice.
All right, fine, yeah. I don't care. Ash it is. All right.
Yay!
Last week, we asked you who deserves to die the most in My Bloody Valentine. Mm-hmm. I nominated TJ Hanniger, who apparently his name is Thomas Jesse Hanniger. Or Tom
so that's where the Jesse came from.
That's where the Jesse came from. And then in the remake, apparently his name is Tom. I don't know. I saw that. And you nominated Axel's father, a.k.a. Supervisor Number 1. I'm sure there was another, with laughing there.
Evil laughter, yeah.
Yeah, what a weird
Reveling.
weirdo. Not you, him. Kind of both of you, but
me too.
across
sure.
Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, we had 193 votes for TJ versus 459 for Axel's father.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like you won the beauty pageant.
I know. I feel like the prettiest girl at the pageant. Yay.
Prettiest girl at the picker.
I am Miss Picker. I don't want to know what the crown looks like. Go on.
So let's hear what some of our viewers/listeners had to say. Kira Wood says, I'm going to go with Axel's father because he's the reason all of that happened. Also wanted to say I love the pod and wanted to know when you're going to do the older Halloween movies.
Ha 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 ha.
Well,
That's the question.
I don't know, but this is the 25th anniversary this year of H2O.
Oh.
If that's considered an older Halloween movie. I don't know. I was watching because sometimes I like to go on YouTube and just like see what other people's rankings are of the movies. And
Sure.
there was someone and they were going through all of it and they were just like, well, here's like the new Halloween movies, like the Halloween 2018 Kills and Ends, and then also like they classified the Rob Zombie ones as like new as well, and they're just like, and now here's the old ones like H2O, and I was just like, no, but I guess it is. I mean, if you think about it, we are closer, we're farther away from H2O than when H2O was to the original Halloween at this point.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I guess
if it's been over 2 decades, it's considered a classic. I learned that the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember sneaking into H2O when that first came out.
Oh god. I remember in the late 90s, it's not horror related, but I remember in the late 90s watching AMC when it used to still be the American Movie Classics, old movie channel.
Yeah.
And I remember Rocky 2 was airing and I was like, that's like a classic now. And I realized it had been over 20 years since it got released, and I was like, oh my god, I guess it is. And that was the first clue, like, you're getting older, son, and you're only going to get older from here. Anyway, just a little tidbit of my life.
Thanks for that, sunshine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thomas Baker says Axel's father is the reason that Harry became a serial killer, and also the same reason that his son became one too. No. I mean, maybe the first part, but Harry's the reason that Axel became a serial killer. Come on, Thomas, get your shit together. Thank you for commenting, though.
Wow. I love you, Thomas.
It's also Axel's father's fault for dying for getting murdered in front of him, that Axel is a serial killer. That's all Dad's fault.
Well, it's his comeuppance. Like, he wouldn't have gotten killed if he didn't have a comeuppance on the way. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, whatever. The sins of the father. Okay.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I get Old Testament with this shit.
Yeah. I don't think that it's considered a sin to be murdered in front of your son. But okay.
No, but go on.
Oh, we're gonna have this out, aren't we? Blue Box 87. TJ was such a toxic bro. Pretending to be a sensitive soul. He only realized he loved Sarah after he failed and came crawling back. That's right.
No one's arguing that.
No. Grant Dempsey.
He's a toxic fuck.
He is. Grant Dempsey. Axel's father got a lot of people killed. He got 5 people killed.
That is a lot. To kill people? That is a lot of people.
Axel killed more people than his father killed people.
That's more people than Michael Myers killed on Halloween night in 1978.
Well, maybe by the
a big
2018 timeline, but if we're incorporating Halloween 2, which is my canon, then no, that was only like a third of the people he killed.
Oh, dear God.
Anyway, Axel's father got a lot of people killed, but his murder ended up getting a lot of people killed too. Live or die, it's a lose-lose in his case. I'm voting TJ. I hated him almost from the start. He just left Sarah behind. No communication at all. I failed so badly out there. I was too embarrassed to write you. How quickly did this idiot fail that he could even imagine getting away with that as an excuse for dropping all contact with her the instant that he left to begin with. Become the third Harry Warden yourself and push that boy down the mine shaft. Girl.
Fun.
Matthias Egeman. Axel's father didn't do his job correctly. Probably that's my boring answer. Right. I don't know that he didn't do his job correctly. He just didn't do his job. There's no correct or incorrect way to like leave as a supervisor while you still have men down in the mine.
This is true.
But no, you're right. Oh god, I don't know if I want to read this because it's not rude, but it's clearly favorable to one of us. But Mr. Max says whichever one Zack thinks.
Aw,
yeah.
That's fine.
Well, thank you. Remember when we were gonna choose? I think it was like the Us episode where we're like it'll be the true test to see who is favored. Like you'll pick one twin, and I'll pick the other. Of like the twin, like the daughters of
yes, in the house, whatever their names were.
Yeah. Silent Saturn. TJ was a.
No, just different people have different loyalties. That's all I was going to say.
True,
Go on.
Yeah. Silent Saturn. TJ was such a jerk. He thought he was meant for bigger things, so just up and left his hometown and girlfriend without a care, only to come crawling back a failure. Then first thing he does is force himself back into his ex's life, not because he cares, but just to prove he's still the small town big hero, if nothing else. He's a prime example of toxic masculinity and ripe for the cherry picking. That is, if he wouldn't look just too darn darling in that handkerchief with one too many shirt buttons undone. I mean,
it's all true.
Swoon much, Sarah, honey. I get it. I'd make that mistake once or 5 times myself. Axel's father gets the chop for choosing to tie over a handkerchief. Or choosing a tie over a handkerchief.
Over a handkerchief, right?
Sorry, I ruined the punchline.
It's cute.
And then finally, Tim Big says, TJ coming back, starting drama, because his sorry ass couldn't make it on his own. Dude, please. What do you think he tried to do? What was his venture?
I just want to believe it's something that required I hope he wanted to make it as like a singer or something, just because I want to imagine that voice and that accent, singing love songs or something while he plays like on a guitar. Yeah. I'd like to think it's something where he has to capitalize on that voice, and he failed because nobody wants to hear that voice singing. That'd be fun. What about you? What do you think he did?
I don't know. I mean, possibly he could have been busking somewhere, but I mean, I don't know. I honestly didn't give it much thought. That's why I just it dawned on me right now. I wanted to ask you. But whatever. Maybe if they ever. I mean, well, I guess they can't because he passed away. But if they ever wanted to make another remake or a sequel and then have their children and then be like, Dad was after that whole bit with Axel murdering everyone in Hanager Mine, he went on to become a huge musical sensation, and there's pictures of him in their house.
They could always just Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 him and cast an entirely different actor to play him, and
Just
to
get a pickaxe, get him like hoisted up in the air.
Yeah, I'd watch that movie.
Anyway,
I don't know if I'd like it, but I'd watch it. Anyway, yeah.
Army of Darkness.
Who
you pick
deserves
first
to die the most?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to lose this one. I can't imagine that many people agreeing with me, but just off the principles that I brought to the table and the questions that it evoked in me, I think Sheila has absolutely no business surviving this movie. I don't think it's necessarily she deserved to die because of any wrongs she committed, which is where I think people are going to misunderstand my choice. But I really think it would have been a better movie had she died, because Ash doesn't get the girl, and even though he loses her because he comes back to his own time and everything like that, the fact that she lives feels very not the franchise to me. So I'm gonna say Sheila for that reason. How about you?
I'm gonna I don't even know if this counts.
I know.
And because I could go the boring answer and I could say Evil Ash, because I think that per the rules of the cherry picker, he would qualify. But now I'm just thinking, like, what about that the coworker at the end who was just like, so bored by his story? I don't know.
Ted Raimi?
Was that Ted Raimi who played that?
That was Ted, yeah.
How many different people did he play in this fucking movie? Well,
it's his brother, right?
I know, but wasn't he already playing one of the soldiers?
Well, everybody's a fake shemp.
That's true.
But that was him. You didn't recognize him from like the
I thought it might have been. Did I already?
His little face?
Yeah. Did I
Yeah, that's him.
Did I nominate Ted Raimi for something else before? I'm just trying to remember like other movies that Ted Raimi's been in that we've done. Okay, no, fuck it. I'll go with Evil Ash because he was just a boringly written evil version of Ash. Like there was no dimension to him at all. That's my saying.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is he the Deadite captain? Is that because Bill Moseley plays the Deadite captain? I'm just looking on IMDb here right now. Our beloved Bill Moseley of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, etc. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3, Bill Moseley, and, many Rob Zombie films. But I'm looking for because I was looking for, like, Evil Ash in the cast list. I guess I didn't scroll down far enough to see Bill Moseley here, but he's credited as Deadite Captain.
All right, here we go.
Is there...
I'm just looking at this bloody, disgusting article. Bill Moseley clears up confusion about Army of Darkness role. So wait, who is Bill Moseley in Army of Darkness? In the wake of rules in horror films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, and Todd Savini's Night of the Living Dead, horror icon Bill Moseley made his mark on the Evil Dead franchise with an appearance in 1992's Army of Darkness. But the role he played, there's been much confusion about that over the years. Moseley is officially credited in Army of Darkness as Deadite Captain, which has led many to believe he's the character us fans commonly refer to as Evil Ash. The zombie-like badass that Ash's evil counterpart becomes after he's killed and buried by Good Ash. So widespread is this belief that it's almost become common knowledge that yes, Moseley played Evil Ash in the film. This, however, is not at all correct, as Chop Top Moseley was forced to clear up over on Twitter recently. The role he actually played in Army of Darkness was new captain of the Army of the Dead, who is not Evil Ash, but rather Evil Ash's right-hand man. And a quick search through Moseley's tweet history below reveals that he's attempted to clear up this confusion several times over the years. So who actually played Evil Ash in Army of Darkness? Bruce Campbell, of course.
I thought so, but I was so confused because he's not credited as Evil Ash at all on IMDb. Or in the credits, I believe. That's really weird. Okay. Well,
I'm even more confused now than I was before I opened that.
He played, I guess, the guy who kept reporting back to Evil Ash.
Yeah. Well,
I guess.
Yeah, my answer is the same. It's going to be Evil Ash. And for anyone, because actually it's funny because this is the franchise. Well, this was the episode that this contentious debate first sprung up, if you remember. That I just quickly want to go over the rules just to make sure, just because I don't want to. Okay. I could be wrong, but I want to. I don't want to upset anyone because there are people who take this very seriously. So reading the rules here: 1, each nomination must not exceed a maximum of 1 individual. So we're good there. 2, the nominee must either be human or anthropomorphic. Did I write that? I can't even fucking pronounce it. Anthropomorphic in appearance.
It works.
That works. 3, if the nominee is a supernatural, scientific, or extraterrestrial being, they may only count as a valid nomination if they are shown to inhabit their original form. Is that an original form?
He does inhabit his original form when they split, and then he morphs. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair.
4, if the nominee is a supernatural, scientific, or extraterrestrial being, they may only count as a valid nomination if they are distinguishable as their own unique and autonomous entity separate from a hive mind. Yep. Yeah. The nominee must be physically seen on screen and exist within the real time of their applicable media. And if the nominee only appears in a dream or flashback, it must be originating to the applicable media. Okay, well, we're in agreement then. Okay, Evil Ash is my nomination. Sheila, does she have a last name?
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not. They didn't write her.
I only ever hear people call Sheila.
Sheila. So it's your nomination, so you can vote your heart, vote your conscience. That poll will be open on Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube. I do want to welcome some new Patreon supporters. So welcome to Ice Mutt Kills, Tanner Strode, Mike Taylor Hill, Phoebe G, and Sarah Sid. Yeah!
Applause for everybody! Welcome!
And thank you to Andre Felix, who is our wonderful editor. Who hopefully, you mentioned him earlier, hopefully he figured out your permish that you threw together. But,
thank you, Andre Felix.
Oh, wow. But speaking of Patreon, if you do want to support me over on my Patreon account, you will get early access to all of our Cherry Picker episodes before they come out. And also, every month we've got our Cherry Picker After Dark, which is the exclusive Patreon episode that we record that is available to the Freddy Krueger tier. We are very excited about this one. We're recording it tomorrow night. What are we doing for that, Eddie?
For that one, we're doing the season 4 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
So I just have to repeat everything. Okay.
Yes, you do.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 4. We've already covered 1 to 3. So very excited for that. If you want to hear us, if you think that we already hate each other, because I've seen a lot of people are just like, they're like, what is with you? Like these two, like they don't seem to be friends at all.
Oh my God.
No, we're good. Wow. We're good. We just know how to, we get over things quickly.
We know how to disagree. Yeah.
But
like it can happen.
But if you want to see us like duking it out, like you need to watch these Buffy things because we rank and like talk about each episode, and our rankings could not be further apart than the others.
Oh.
So
Zack gets angry.
If anything, it gives me more power because it makes me feel like a truer Buffy fan when I see when I see the shit that you put.
in the first pod for the season 1,
Yeah.
I don't think it took long. I didn't time it.
Yeah.
But I know we were pretty early in the episode where you just told me you are not a Buffy fan after I shared
I was
one of
taken
my
aback.
rankings.
Look, I've been watching Buffy since day 1. And you kind of came on a few years later, so I feel like I have seniority anyway. But
Oh, dear God.
this is just a taste. This is just a taste. So, so those are really fun, extra long episodes. If you want to jump on my Patreon and check those out. Otherwise, you can follow us on Instagram. The official Cherry Picker account is @thecherrypicker. If you're listening to the podcast, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and watch the Cherry Picker videos there. And also, if you are watching us and you don't want to for some reason and just want to hear our voices, you can follow the RSS feed link in the descriptions down below and listen to us on most major podcast streaming platforms. This is not rehearsed, people.
Oh.
Edward.
I mean, it is.
Edward, where can they...
For over a year, you've
I know,
been
but
rehearsing this.
I can never remember. Edward, where can they find you on Soch?
You can find Edward at Edward is Truth, one word, on Instagram and on YouTube. How about you, Zack Cherry?
You can find me on my main channel, Zack Cherry, Zack, Zack. Cherry, Cherry. Subscribe to me there. I'm also on Instagram at RetroBitchface. That's all one word, exactly how it sounds. And I'm on Twitter, ZackCherry8. Sometimes I make fun memes and shit, you know. Anyway, do you know what's going on next week on the regular Cherry Picker?
Is it the one where...
Yes!
Okay, then that's the one we're doing. It's the one where, you go to, say like an eatery or a restaurant and you order off the menu.
Ding, 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 ding!
The menu! I still haven't seen it, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No, not at all.
Fun. So anyway, that's what's going on next week. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be right